Today I'm in Shoals, Alabama, and we're going to take a look at one of the most famous recording studios of the 70s. There were probably more hits turned out of this little bitty building than any other place in the United States, or maybe even the world during that time. So let's take a look at it. This is the famous Shoals recording studio. It's at 1614 Jackson Highway. It used to be, at one time, a old casket shop. They sold caskets here. And there were four sessions musicians that opened this studio up and just turned it into a mecca hit producer. The original, I think it was in 1969, Cher produced her solo album here, and the cover is actually of this building, and they're actually standing right in front here. But that kind of put them on the face of everything. You just wouldn't believe the people that have come through these doors. The Rolling Stones, Aretha Franklin, Wilson Pickett, Willie Nelson, Leonard Skinner, Joe Cocker, Paul Simon, Bob Seger, Rod Stewart, Cat Stevens, and Cher, just to name a few. It's just amazing to think that they walked through these doors and produced some of the most famous songs that you have heard during the 70s. Some of the famous songs that were produced here were Take a Letter, Maria, Brown Sugar was done here by the Rolling Stones. Wild Horses was also done here. Kodachrome with Paul Simon was done here, and Loves Me Like a Rock. Kathmandu, Bob Seger was done here. Bob Seger did Night Moves here, and he did Main Street. There's Old Time Rock and Roll was done here. It's just amazing to think that all those sounds came out of this little bitty studio. And you can find a lot of documentaries about this place. One of my favorite stories is that when Rod Stewart was here, he asked one of the sessions musicians that one of the four that started this place, to get his bag for him, and they told him to get his own damn bag. These are old northern Alabama boys, and they play by different rules down here.
You boys might want to do another take. Yeah, said it took them 5 takes to get it down.
Really?
Yeah. But yeah.
Well, a lot of people said they weren't super tight.
No.
All
no.
the time.
No.
It was pretty ugly.
Well, they said that the distortion from Keith's guitar upstairs was so bad that they had to try to jerry-rig something.
Yeah.
And the old original board was hand-built by a local guy named Paul Kelly, and Paul came up with the idea of getting those old Rubbermaid, that you put under your sink drain when you're draining your glass, and he stacked those around his amp and put it in a closet, and the distortion went down, and they could still mic it and get what they need.
Oh, fascinating.
Yeah. They said that the first night they were here, that Jimmy walked out to Charlie Watts and said, "You need to tune your drums. They're banging up against the bass." And Charlie said, "I never tune me drums. I bang on them until they sound." David has been bringing in some great photos lately, and he brought in this incredible photo of Roger Hawkins with Charlie upstairs with their arms around each other. You just think There's Charlie Watts for the Stones, and there's Roger Hawkins that at 19 was the drummer on all the Aretha records and all of that. I mean, it was a mutual admiration society there because,
Right.
you know, I mean, but yeah, it's pretty amazing. I've already showed them, but I'll show
you have
you
to see
See the bootleg room.
the hidden lounge.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah,
Cool.
yeah.
Cool.
And they could go to Tennessee and get beer, you know, go to bootleggers, get whatever else they need.
So this is Dry County?
Uh-huh.
Still is?
No, it went wet in '82.
No kidding.
Yeah. So,
Cool.
yeah, it's
Incredible.
echo chamber.
Go ahead. Go ahead. You're good.
I'll hold the door for you while you're filming.
Yeah, when the Allman Betts
This
boys
was-
were here, they did the entire record on 2-inch analog tape and used this whole studio.
This is a custom built.
This was a custom built for Chet.
Holy smokes.
It was Chet's board. He had it built in 1970. It was automated processes in Farmingdale, New York. With Dave Cobb being on our board, we were able to, this was the board that was in Studio B in Nashville. We were able to get this board, so it's fully functional and happening.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah. The little circle where the paint's worn off,
Yeah.
it's where Chet said his doctor.
Shut up.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's a. If you go to YouTube and punch in Rolling Stones and Muscle Shoals, you see the video of Keith and the great Memphis producer Jim Dickinson listening to the playback of Wild Horses, and they're sitting on this little sofa here with Keith with his feet up against the glass.
Seen it.
Yeah.
Joe,
Yeah.
I seen it.
Yep. Yeah.
Can I start pushing buttons now?
Absolutely.
So was there a whole lot of innovation that came from having things built specially?
There was. I'll be honest
You
with
know what
you.
I mean?
I'm not smart enough to tell you what they were.
Right, but you know.
Yeah. There was. I mean, Chet went to these guys and said, "I want this. I want that. I
Right.
want this." You know. I mean, that. No telling how much that cost in 1970. I mean, honestly.
Oh Lord, I mean.
Yeah, probably. I mean,
Yeah.
you think in 1970, $400,000 or $500,000 was like $2 or $3 million now.
Pretty much.
You know? Absolutely.
What's really interesting is the interface between digital and
Yeah.
over
We
here.
can do everything with
That's-
Pro Tools if we need to.
That's pretty cool to look and.
We've done a couple of sessions with Pro Tools, you know, but
Who's bass?
the boys called this the Burlap Palace. When they came in, it was a tin roof. Started to rain, they'd have to stop. So they went and bought burlap and housing insulation.
Shut up.
Started wrapping it. The whole time they were here, it was not a soundproof room. It was still burlap and a tin roof.
I bet it's kind of a twangy sound.
Yeah. The other thing they realized with these old cement block walls over here, of course, cement blocks have holes in them.
Right.
So they went to the utility department in Sheffield, and the styrofoam is what the glass part of the electric meters came in. They identified which ones had the dead spots, put that on there in the sound. Somebody said, "Man, that's engineering, ain't it?" I went, "Nope. 24-year-old boys with no money." Yeah. This is David's corner. We laughed the last day they were here. He had signed the wall, and then our session 2 weeks ago, Nicole Atkins put that up there under that, so which was pretty cool.
Oh, that's cute.
David's amp, all those years at Fame here. That's the amp that he used on Etta James' Tell Mama, Wilson Pickett's Land of a Thousand Dances, Bob Seger, Paul Simon, Rod Stewart, Staple Singer. And that's the amp that Bill Wyman used on Wild Horses and Brown Sugar. David's chart from Still Crazy After All These Years, and you can note that there's no musical notes on there. Yeah. David's original bass, when they were on the road with Traffic, was stolen. It was a '61 Fender Jazz. He bought it new for $165. But we just wanted something. I think this is a 67, but we just wanted something to. David will still occasionally play that, but he will quickly tell you that's not my bass. I never played that bass on anything. Yeah. Roger's drum booth here. They built this in '71. The whole time they were here, they rented the building. They didn't own the building, and they had to have permission, so they built it. I know you've heard Kodachrome, Paul Simon, a million times. That rhythm that you hear is Roger playing cardboard boxes.
Are you serious?
They had old tape boxes and they filled them with paper, tissue, wherever they could to get the sound right. And that loping thing is Roger on boxes. Yeah. My favorite rock and roll story of all time is that when Roger's first session over at Fame, Jerry Wexler walked out. I think Roger was 18 or 19, and Jerry walked out and looked at Roger and said, "You're a good drummer." And they said, "Well, Roger, what'd you say back to him?" He said, "I didn't say anything. I became a great drummer." There you go.
That's funny.
Yeah, Jimmy's corner over here. Of course, Jimmy played rhythm guitar, engineered. He is the man that brought you Leonard Skinner, basically. You know.
Thank you, and thank you. That's,
Yep.
say enough.
The little black guitar there was the great Pete Carr. Pete had been in the Hourglass with Greg and Dwayne Allman and moved here. And Bob Seger's Main Street, Rod Stewart's Tonight's the Night, all that great guitar was Pete. And that little black guitar is Pete's guitar. He stopped by a few weeks ago and sat in that little chair and played Main Street for us.
Oh, really?
Yeah, Pete's a sweet soul. He and his wife just had some couple of friends they wanted to show the studio to, and they stopped by. Glass around the control room's original, never broken.
Huh, really? Even Leonard Skinner in here?
Yeah, exactly. That's my line. The monitors there are the originals. The little blue chair and the little funky sofa over there are all originals. And then, of course, the piano. That's the one.
That's the piano.
That's the piano. Old time rock and roll, Kathmandu. We've got the Night Moves. Jimmy calls it the Kodachrome piano. And I mean, Rod Stewart's Tonight's the Night. I mean, on and on and on. You've heard that little piano a few million times. When they closed the second studio, one of the backup singers bought it. And during the interim through all those years, she taught children piano lessons,
Oh, come on.
which is pretty appropriate. Yeah. And she actually, we laugh and say she loaned it to us forever. But yep, that's the one. Strangely enough, that piano intro on Old Time Rock and Roll was not Barry Beckett. Barry was out that day, and a local piano player named Randy McCormick did the piano part on Old Time Rock and Roll. Randy, years later, when Barry left the Swampers and moved to Nashville, Randy was actually became the piano player for the Swampers in the last couple of years.
I thought that name sounded familiar. I've seen it on there.
The boys wanted something for good luck, and they didn't have a horseshoe, but they have toilet seat. So, there you have that. And
That makes me happy.
and the restroom is lovingly referred to as the Keith Richards. That's where Keith locked himself in the bathroom and wrote Wild Horses. We had a film crew here yesterday, most of the day. They're doing a coffee table book on famous bathrooms. And they spent hours getting every angle of this bathroom because that's where Keith wrote, Wild Horses. They didn't have a vocal booth, and Jagger did his vocals in this office. And you can see in the picture that David took there, you see the filing cabinet behind him? How would that happen nowadays? That wouldn't happen nowadays.
Nope.
You know, yeah. The great Donnie Fritz, you know, Christopherson's right-hand man, keyboard player, everything for all those years. Donnie did his first solo record here. They brought in a few friends.
Just
John
a few.
Prine, Tony Joe White, Chris Christopherson, the great songwriter Dan Penn, you know, a few folks for Donnie's record. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. I always loved Eddie Hinton in this picture with his Indian motorcycle shirt on. You see Eddie in that in a lot of records. He was always wearing that. Yeah.
Hinton's a big deal.
Yeah.
I have to tell you, I just went through the indoor tour of the studio, and if you're ever in Muscle Shoals, go see this, because this, if you were a fan of 1970s music, this is where the majority of the hits were made, without a doubt. And you can see stuff that Mick Jagger sat on, that Paul Simon, used. It's the neatest thing I've seen in a long time. So check it out. It's actually in Sheffield, Alabama, and it's on Jackson Highway.